I remember a specific moment in my life that seemed insignificant. It was a pinnacle moment for me, but I didn't realize how important it was until about a year later when I looked back. It was a moment that sparked something within my subconscious. I was not aware of the changes the moment made me desire within myself, or the issues it made me strive to subconsciously overcome. It was a late summer night. I was struggling to fall asleep, which was not uncommon for me at the time. I was feeling a particular emotion, or rather a combination of emotions. It was a combination that I could not recognize or label. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't find a way to describe it. That was partly because I wasn't even consciously aware that I was feeling anything at all. It was during a time when I had suppressed expression and recognition of my emotions. Instead of attempting to fall asleep by laying with my eyes closed, I decided to look through YouTube. In my feed, I came across a video YouTube had recommended to me. I listened to a lot of music, so it was not surprising to see a playlist of music in my feed. However, I didn't even realize the video was a playlist of music until I tapped it. It was titled, "It's One of Those Nights." I'll never forget the text in the opening of the video. The indescribable emotions I felt were there, in front of my eyes, articulated in the best possible way words could provide. The text read, "The title refers to the nights that I have some kind of feeling which is hard to explain. I'm sure most of you have also had this feeling during some nights. I would describe these feelings as awe, melancholy, loneliness, calmness, and peacefulness." I listened to the playlist. As I listened, I felt myself reaching, longingly for something. Something that just wasn't there. Something, unbeknownst to me, I had been missing for quite some time. The music in the playlist amplified the complicated feelings within me, and inspired me to make my own playlist with the same idea. I went into my iTunes library and began collecting together instrumental songs that provided the same sound. I also included a few of my favorites from the original playlist. The final song I put in the playlist was a song called "Touch" by Daughter. It was, and still is, the only fully vocal track in the playlist. It was the only song in my library with vocals that was able to capture what I was feeling. I then listened to my own version of the playlist, and, strangely enough, the song that sent me to sleep was "Touch." It's strange, because such a melancholic and tragic song lulled me to sleep. The song is about longing for something, longing for touch, for connection. It didn't necessarily have to be love, just some kind of connection with someone. A connection to make you feel something. I think the song was able to lull me to sleep because it was a song that brought forward a longing I didn't even know I had. At the time, I was indifferent about interpersonal connection. I didn't want it, nor did I seek it. I just didn't care. When I listened to the song, it made me realize, if only subconsciously, if only in the deepest recesses of my mind, and if only for a short time, that I longed for connections. When I woke up the next morning, I felt no different than I had the day before, but the longing for relationships lingered passively within me. Since then, I have only had the same feeling from one other piece of media, and that media is Neo Nakatani's Bloom Into You. Bloom Into You is not a masterpiece by any means, but I highly suggest you give it a watch if you haven't already. Well, I was wrong. After reading the manga, I must admit that Bloom Into You is, in fact, a masterpiece. A masterpiece by every means. When I first covered the anime, I discussed my struggle with indifference to my emotions and interpersonal relationships, and how the series helped me through it. I covered the many lessons it taught me, including the hope that each character represents for me. Even though I've mostly overcome my indifference, I don't value romantic connections. I'm still moderately indifferent to love. That's not to say I haven't felt it, I just don't care about it. There are many other things that I value well above love, such as family, friends, and even this YouTube channel. I don't have the motivation or determination to seek it like Sayaka, and I don't have someone to change my values of it like Toko did for you. Although, as I've reread the manga, I'm not so sure about my indifference to love anymore. When I originally began to draft this essay, I was going to discuss how the Bloom Into You manga realistically portrays an anxiety I feel often, the anxiety of confrontation. During confrontation, I would always experience an overwhelming anxiety that consumes my thoughts. Over time, I began to attempt to amend that flaw by forcing myself to be a confrontational person. Needless to say, it didn't work. I still have the same anxiety, and I don't think I'll ever be able to get over it. I didn't want to write an essay about how the manga reminded me of something about myself that frustrated me so much. I wanted to find a way to describe why it means so much to me. Just as well, when I began to outline and draft, I realized that it wouldn't be enough content to cover just that one aspect. So, I opened up my mind to new possibilities as I continued to reread the series. In doing so, I found out why I truly love the manga. I labeled what I was feeling while reading it for the first time as confrontational anxiety, because I didn't really know how else to label it. I did feel that anxiety, but it was for a reason of which, until recently, I was oblivious to. Earlier this week, I was reading the manga while eating lunch. It was chapter 35, the chapter after Yu confessed to Toko and was seemingly rejected. As I read the chapter, I noticed that I was shivering. My house tends to be cold, but I was wearing a long-sleeve shirt with another layer underneath, which should have been plenty. I also noticed that I was sweating. I recognized that the only possibility for me to be both shivering and sweating was if I was nervous. Then, I began to wonder why I was feeling that way. Even though I knew that it was fictional, even though I knew exactly how the manga was going to end, I was still nervous. It turned out that I had projected myself onto Yu. Due to that, the confrontation between Yu and Toko had actual stakes. It actually meant something to me because it was between a character I had projected myself onto and someone that character deeply cared about. It felt as if I was Yu, feeling the love for Toko and the grief of rejection. As I reread the rest of the series, I repeatedly felt anxiety and grief in other parts, such as when Sayaka confessed to Toko. I felt joy in chapter 40 when Toko accepted Yu's feelings. I felt butterflies in my stomach when Yu and Toko would make awkward, loving eye contact. I felt my heart beat faster when Toko and Yu held hands or kissed. I felt excitement when Toko was able to spend time with Yu. After I finished the manga, I closed the book and lay down on my bed. My mind began to wander through thoughts of Yu and Toko, through thoughts of their relationship, through thoughts of their love. Something about the way my heart raced, and the way I was just staring into space, felt oddly familiar. It was the same longing for connection, only this time I wasn't lacking all interpersonal connection. Feeling it to be one of those nights, I got out my phone and scrolled through my library to find the playlist that I hadn't played in such a long time. Once again, I fell asleep to the music. When I awoke, it was around 11:30 p.m. The playlist had finished, but my mind had not stopped wandering. The longing I had felt only a couple hours before was still there, and it's still lingering in me as I'm writing this script. I always thought I could be fine without romance, that friendships and family were the only connections I really desired. Now I'm really not so sure. It turns out that I may have actually had that longing for romantic connection, but I simply repressed it within myself because it was in my way. That longing conflicted with my other values, so I ignored it. I was just like Yu. She didn't want to admit that she wanted or experienced love because it created pain and conflict from the rejection. I didn't want to admit that I desired love because it created that same pain and conflict. I think Bloom Into You really showed me something. It has shown me a part of myself that I didn't really want to admit was there. I'm not sure if this longing will continue to linger, or if I'll continue to suppress it. I guess time will tell what happens. This series has done so much for me, so I'm really going to consider taking the opportunity to change myself that I've discovered through it. I'm sure that whatever I decide to do, this series will always be there to help me push through. No matter what new emotional or mental struggles I go through, I can find something in Nakatani's beautiful work to help me overcome it. You know, for being a series all about not being able to feel certain emotions, Bloom Into You sure makes me feel a lot of different emotions. Thanks to the series, I've reconnected with my desire for interpersonal connection, and quite possibly, my desire for love. Before I close out this video, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I've got a lot of stuff going on. New stuff comes up, negative and positive, every day. This year has just been crazy, and I'm honestly ready for it to be over. I probably won't be making any videos until January, so I probably won't see you all until then. I might be active on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to follow me, links are in the description, or you can join my Discord. I'll definitely be responding on there. Link will also be in the description for that. So I'll see you all in 2021. Hopefully, it's better than this year.